Hey there, Dragon fans. This is Wesatron. Today we're going to be taking a look at Spin Master's How to Train Your Dragon 2 Hiccup vs. Drago 2-pack. I just picked this up at Toys R Us, which is the only place I've seen them so far, and it cost me $12.99 for the set. Now the box itself is pretty plain. You've got a shot of Hiccup riding Toothless up here that kind of spans across the top, but the background is pretty generic, it's just like a light burst, sunburst type thing. You see the two figures displayed here. The bottom is closed up so you can't see, feet articulation or anything like that, so I'm a little bit going in here blind, but on the back we've just got some cross cells as far as the dragons themselves. And another shot of Hiccup and Toothless. Unfortunately, we don't get to see any other figures. I only saw one other 2-pack, so I'm not sure if there's only two 2-packs in this series or if there's going to be more coming out or what. I wish they had done a little bit more on the back to let you know what was up with these, and also like the names of all these things. I always like when they include stuff like that, just so lines like this that are a little under-publicized in the toy circles get a little bit more exposure. So that we know what's actually coming out in the waves. So let's go ahead and get these guys open and see what they're like. Here we have Hiccup and Drago out of packaging, and I gotta say I really like the sculpt on both of these figures. They did a really good job of capturing a lot of details while still keeping that cartoony look. So very, very cool. I guess we'll go ahead and start with Hiccup. Their articulation is mostly identical, but a little more useful on Hiccup. We've got a swivel head. There doesn't seem to be any up and down or anything, so it doesn't appear to be a ball joint, but it does go all the way around and everything. There's a little bit more in the shoulders than I thought. I thought these were just going to be swivel shoulders, but they actually are swivel hinge, and they have tons of range of motion. Great. Nothing in the wrists, nothing in the midsection or waist or anything like that. We've got V-cut hips that are cut at a very, very shallow V, so they get more rotation than they do actual movement like forward. I think part of that is so that they can set them up for the dragons. If you'll notice on his back he's got a little peg hole here, and that's so he can mount Toothless. So I think you turn the leg like this and then it'll kind of lock on to the dragon. But they did offer swivel hinge knees, which still allows for that joint to be useful, even though it's just a cut as opposed to a ball joint, because you can move the leg forward like that, kind of out to the side, and then bend the knee and then turn it so that it still kind of simulates a forward and 90-degree bend. So certainly not bad. Nothing in the ankles though, which is a bit of a shame. That always helps just for stability and stuff, but I imagine most people will either have him sitting on Toothless or standing next to Toothless, but it would help in his case because of his little prosthetic leg here to help him stand a little bit better. So not too bad in terms of standing, but if you kind of don't hold him up for a second first, sometimes he can take a spell. So not too bad. As far as Drago, he's got this big old spear thing. He does have essentially the same articulation as Hiccup, but as I said, it's not quite as useful. I believe he's got a swivel joint somewhere underneath all this hair which goes around his back, but this is very, very thick, tough plastic, and it's been painted, so there's no movement in that head whatsoever. You do have swivel hinges in the shoulders, which get a decent range out, but nowhere near what Hiccup's got, and then a little bit forward and back on either side of the arms. Probably more on the left than the right, I would say. Nothing in the wrists, nothing in the waist, unfortunately. And then we've got the same kind of V hips that go forward like that, blocked a little bit by his skirt, which again is kind of thicker plastic. And then we've got the swivel hinges in the knees. His are a very tight joint, but they do get 90 degrees, and they do offer rotation, but because of the thickness and the way that they cut this joint so that there's this flap that hangs over to disguise the knee, makes it a little bit harder to turn it because it wants to press on that. It's not necessarily difficult to actually turn it itself. It's more that there's a risk that you might pop this out or tear it or stretch it, and you don't want to have loose knees on this figure. So articulation, not bad. For 13 bucks, that makes them $6.50 a figure, so I wasn't expecting a ton, but I was kind of at least expecting, wrists or elbows. So, not bad, but certainly not great. Now, as I said, the detail on these guys is actually quite nice. You can see there's a lot of little sculpted details, some scale mail there on his chest. Some nice red paints there. I've seen the same things on Toothless, so it looks like they're going to war in this movie, which is pretty cool. On his back, you can see there's something folded down. It looks like it's probably going to be a flap, like a rudder, I guess, for when he's lying down close to Toothless. So very cool. We've got lots of nice little spikes and details and stuff on the helmet. There's some kind of emblem there as well. Very, very nice on the back. You can see we've got some segmented armor here. More of the scale mail on the back of the body. And then down here, they actually did a pretty good job for being such small scale figure to actually creating his prosthetic legs. Very cool. And he's got his big one giant boot, thick foot that they often have. So very, very cool. And his accessory that he's included with is a little sword. And it's on fire. I don't know if that's something where it gets fire breathed on it by Toothless, or if this is like some kind of mystical weapon or what, but it does fit in his hand pretty nicely. I thought it wasn't going to be a very good fit because he's got such small hands, but it actually clips in quite well. So very, very cool. That's where I was kind of hoping he would have a little more articulation in his arms so he could get more use out of it, but not really. So a bit unfortunate, but the mask is removable, as you saw before we started. And the likeness to Hiccup is really not great. Probably closer to what he looked like in the first movie before he grew up a little bit. But it's not bad. I mean, like I said, it's a small-scale figure, and it's not, you know, Hasbro or anything like that. So, still pretty good. Nice detail on the hair. A lot of it, I think, the detail may just be washed away because of the thick paint application. You can see it on his face. You can see it in his hair. It's just very thick, gloppy paint. I actually wish that they hadn't done paint on his face and actually molded it in that color instead, because every time you put this very, very tight helmet on there, you run the risk of scraping that paint off. So hopefully that won't happen from taking it on and off a lot, but we'll see in the long run. Now Drago here also looks very, very good. You can see he's got a big kind of a malevolent grin on his face. He does not have, as far as I can tell, the peg on his backside the way... Oh, I'm sorry, he does have one. It's over on his right side. Okay. So he should be able to ride dragons as well. I didn't think he'd be able to ride dragons, but it looks like he's good with that. Again, he's got segmented armor similar to what Hiccup's got. And over here, he's got kind of banded together armor just from different pieces and stuff. A nice big gold sun on his belt there. Some stitched up parts, more mail. Very, very cool. They did a nice job with the details on this. Apparently his belt was made in China, so that's really helpful. He's got big furry boots and everything. Very, very nice looking. Peg holes on the bottom of the feet, and that's on both figures. So overall, I would say that these guys look really, really good. They match, from what I've seen from the movie so far, they match the models pretty well. Not perfect by any means, but, you know, good enough for a kid's toy line. So I dig it. So as I said, this set was $13, which makes these figures about $6.50 a piece. A few years ago, I would have said that that was not a good deal. Nowadays, it's really not that bad. Articulation is definitely not up to par with something like this, which these are in roughly 4-inch scale. I would imagine that he's probably grossly out of scale, but I think Hiccup is supposed to be roughly in the 4-inch range, which is the same as our Retaliation Snake Eyes over here. But you pay about $10 for this figure with all the bells and whistles and everything like that. $6.50 a piece. It's not awful for a kids line. Parents will probably pay that without, you know, much fuss. That's not too bad these days. I would have preferred more articulation. I think there's a lot of places they could have easily squeezed it in. It makes me wonder if these had to be rushed at all, just because they are sort of bare bones. But, you know, it could be a lot worse. I'm guessing that once these start hitting all stores instead of just TRU, that this price is going to jump at TRU from $12.99 to $14.99. So if you get the opportunity and you do like this set, I'd go ahead and pick them up now before they jump in price, or you're going to have to wait till you can find them at maybe a Target or Walmart. I'm guessing these are probably going to be pretty popular this summer. I could be wrong, but I'm thinking this movie's going to be pretty good and that it's going to have quite a following. So yeah, that's about it. Pretty decent set, maybe a bit pricey. $10 would have been nicer, but I mean, those days are pretty much gone. So $13 seems like a pretty fair price, you know, going rate type of thing. So that's it. If you have any comments or questions, please toss them out to me. I'd be glad to answer them for you. Anything you feel I might have skipped over, that's cool. You know, let me know and I'll help you out. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to subscribers and commenters. I really appreciate it, guys. I will talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.